The first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the hospital was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that roars inside your chest when the person who gave your life meaning is no longer walking beside you. The automatic doors slid shut behind me with a soft hiss, like the building itself was exhaling after swallowing my wife whole. I stood there for a moment, one foot on the pavement, one foot still trembling with the instinct to turn back, and realized something terrifying. I was leaving alone, and I would be alone forever. I had walked into that hospital weeks ago holding her hand, promising her we'd be home soon. I walked out holding nothing but a folded discharge paper that felt heavier than her body ever had. The sun was shining, people were laughing, cars were honking, and the world was insultingly alive. I wanted to scream at it. I wanted to tell everyone to stop, because my world had ended in room 317 at 40:42 a.m. I remember the smell of antiseptic clinging to my clothes. I remember the beep of machines that once annoyed me, and later became the only proof that she was still here. I remember how her fingers looked smaller every day, how her wedding ring kept slipping off, because her hands were forgetting what it meant to hold on. And I remember the moment the doctor said, "We did everything we could," as if that sentence had ever saved anyone from this kind of pain. When I walked out of the hospital, people expected tears. I expected them too. But grief is strange. It doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrives hollow, like your soul has been scooped out and replaced with air. I felt empty, weightless, unreal. My wife was gone, and somehow I was still breathing. That felt like a betrayal. We had met when life was simple and dreams were loud. She laughed with her whole body, the kind of laugh that made strangers turn around and smile. She believed in things, love, destiny, second chances. She believed in me long before I believed in myself. When I told her I was scared of failing, she said, "Fail with me. At least we'll fail together." I didn't know then how cruel the universe could be to promises like that. In the hospital, time didn't move forward. It just circled. Days blended into nights, nights into prayers, prayers into silence. I slept on a chair that bruised my back and haunted my dreams. I learned the rhythm of her breathing better than my own. I learned how to smile at nurses while my heart was bleeding internally. I learned how to say, "I'm okay," so convincingly that people stopped asking. The last conversation we had wasn't dramatic. There were no movie-style speeches, no poetic goodbyes. She looked at me, tired but calm, and said, "You don't have to be strong all the time." I told her I loved her. She smiled faintly and closed her eyes. I didn't know that was the last time I'd see that smile. If I had known, I would have memorized every line of her face, every freckle, every breath. When she was gone, the room felt offended by my presence, like I no longer belonged there. I kissed her forehead, already cold, already unfamiliar, and whispered things I should have said years ago. Regrets poured out of me like confession in a church with no God listening. Then the nurse gently touched my shoulder and said it was time. Time. As if time had any meaning left. Walking out of the hospital felt like committing a crime. I was leaving her behind. I was choosing to live when she couldn't. Every step away from that building felt like another promise broken. The doors closed. The world continued. And I stood there wondering how I was supposed to exist in a place where she didn't. Grief followed me home, but it didn't announce itself. It sat quietly on the couch where she used to curl up. It slept on her side of the bed. It stared back at me from the mirror when I brushed my teeth alone. The house was filled with her things. Her shoes by the door, her coffee mug in the sink, her hair still tangled in my pillow. Love doesn't disappear when someone dies. It becomes a ghost that haunts everything. People told me she was in a better place. I hated them for that. Her better place was here, arguing with me over stupid things, stealing fries from my plate, falling asleep during movies. Her better place was alive. I didn't need philosophy. I needed my wife. Some nights I talked to her like she was still there. I told her about my day, about how I forgot to water the plants she loved, about how I still reached for my phone to text her. Other nights I sat in the dark, angry at her for leaving me, angry at myself for surviving, angry at a universe that takes without asking. There were moments I thought I heard her footsteps, moments I turned around expecting to see her smile. Those moments hurt the most because for half a second, hope came back, and then reality crushed it again. Grief isn't one wound, it's 1,000 tiny cuts that reopen every day. But somewhere between the pain and the loneliness, something else started to grow. Not happiness, not peace, just understanding. I began to realize that walking out of that hospital alone wasn't the end of my story. It was the most painful beginning imaginable. Loving her had changed me forever. Losing her had broken me, but it hadn't erased me. I started carrying her with me, not as a memory that hurts, but as a presence that guides. In the way I speak tender words. In the way I don't postpone love anymore. In the way I understand now that nothing is permanent, and that's exactly why it matters. The day I walked out of the hospital alone, I left my wife behind, but I didn't leave our love. That love lives in every breath I take, every step I walk, every sunrise I endure without her. I didn't choose this life, but I'm still here, and maybe, just maybe, living is the last promise I can keep for her. Because if she taught me anything, it's that love doesn't end when someone does. It just learns how to survive in a different form.